Our next speaker is Neal Galehouse. He's an engineering specialist at the National Center for Pavement Preservation.
Topic of my presentation this afternoon is training and certification programs for pavement preservation. The theme of our meeting this year is quality, and I don't think we can have discussion of quality without including training and certification. They're both important components of having a quality program. Both as agency and contractor, I think we're aware of the amount of turnover that exists within these agencies. There's a continual need to train people. I think certification can also help with that. I'd like to start out by talking about some of the opportunities that are available within this region for training. You're fortunate to have the ISSA workshop in close proximity to you. That goes on each January in Las Vegas. They spend 3 to 4 days going over detailed training information about the various preservation treatments. There's talk of calibration, mixing, application techniques. There's some demonstrations. Another opportunity is through RAP. Jason Lampley talked yesterday about the training that they offer in conjunction with their annual meeting. They're also looking to branch out and do training within those West Coast states, California, Oregon, Washington, make training more accessible to some of the local agencies. There's also training offered through the California Pavement Preservation Center. So these groups all have a great deal of expertise and are able to provide training on issues that are of regional importance. Moving on, I want to talk briefly about the Rocky Mountain West Partnership, the training task force. After we're done with this presentation, we're going to be going into breakouts, and this particular task force has been very active in promoting training and issues that different states are having related to training. So if this is something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to sit in on that group and participate with that task force. Technical services program within AASHTO, states are contributing members to that. They're able to receive unlimited training for free. Connie Yu mentioned yesterday that there's a pilot program for local agencies to also participate in this free of cost. And so there's a lot of coursework available on this site for those needing information related to preservation. If you're not a contributing agency or you're a contractor or a consultant, I believe you're still able to purchase a block of hours and access the material that's on that site. There's also the asphalt emulsion certificate that's been made available through EMA. This is a fairly new course that's out there. It's hosted by the University of Arkansas. It's a 16-hour online self-paced course on asphalt emulsion, and so there's a certificate issued at the end of that. The Asphalt Institute has periodic webinars, seminars, written training manuals, things of that nature. The Federal Highway Center for Local Aid Support, they've been hosting a variety of webinars over the past year or so under this Innovative Exchange series. So those that have been completed are available for viewing, and there will be other courses put out over time. NCPP, obviously we've done a number of training courses around the country. If there's an interest on a particular topic, we're more than willing to come out to the agency or contractor and offer training to you. And there's also NHI, there's a number of online training courses for concrete and asphalt pavement preservation at fairly low cost. Another resource I want to talk about briefly is the TSP2 video library. Most of you are probably familiar with that. Each of our meetings are recorded and then placed on the TSP2 video library. Each of the annual meetings is broken down through whatever partnership that occurred at. We've also gone and taken that information and reorganized the high-value videos onto topic area, so you're able to go and you don't necessarily need to know when something happened, but if you're interested in a particular topic, click on that link and there's going to be a number of high-value videos either you or or someone in your organization may be able to benefit from. So moving forward, I want to get into a discussion of certification, and I'm going to start out by talking about what is certification. Certification is the verification that an employee possesses the necessary knowledge through a combination of training and field experience by passing a written examination from someone who is a recognized third party who specializes in the field. So why is certification important? We put a lot of effort into designing our projects, selecting good materials, but there's really no value there if there's no workmanship on the project. A good project is dependent on all three components coming together to achieve a good result. So I have a graphic here of the causes of poor pavement performance. Now, this graphic is not specific to preservation itself, but it speaks to the issue, and that is that workmanship is the predominant cause of poor pavement performance on a project. I have some examples of unacceptable work. Probably at some point or another seen projects like this. There's microsurfacing, we've got some washboarding on the surface, crack treatment, poor construction quality. So background of certification. Certification has been around in the industry since it was endorsed by AASHTO in 1976. Certification is commonly required for asphalt, for soils, for concrete. In 2016, the TSP2 certification program was approved by the AASHTO TSP2 Oversight Panel and was also endorsed by the ISSA Board of Directors. Then this past July at the AASHTO Maintenance Committee, which is formerly the Subcommittee on Maintenance, a resolution was passed that encouraged states to require that certification was a requirement of both agency and contractor personnel who were involved in the design and construction of preservation treatments. I want to talk about the benefits to agencies who would adopt a certification requirement. So when an agency requires certification of the contractor, there's confidence that the contractor has the knowledge to properly design and construct the treatment. They're able to ensure that future investments in the preservation are properly constructed, properly designed. From an agency perspective, their certified personnel, whether that's a preservation specialist, a field inspector, these people are going to be your technical experts for that treatment, and they're able to work with the contractor to complete a consistent, high-quality project. Finally, there's confidence that the treatment is going to perform as it's intended, and that the agency is going to realize that expected life extension benefit. For the contractor, there's confidence that those key employees that they require to be certified possess critical knowledge to construct a preservation treatment. It also demonstrates that the contractor is committed to a trained and qualified workforce. And finally, as is true with the agency, the contractor has greater confidence that their treatment is going to perform as it's intended. So moving on to the certification exams that are available for individuals. Exams have been developed for slurry systems, which includes microsurfacing, polymer modified slurry seal. It's available for chip seals, and finally crack treatments. We are also in the process of developing a new exam for asphalt rubber chip seals, and that should be available shortly. So who are the people that we suggest being certified? On the agency side, we're talking about a preservation specialist from the headquarters or central office, one senior level inspector from each region or district, depending on the nomenclature used, one preservation treatment designer, and then any outside consultants who might be providing inspection services on behalf of the agency. Really, this is left up to the agency to determine for themselves who they're going to require. These are just suggestions that we have. On the contractor side, the suggested personnel include company superintendents, company trainer, if this is a designated position. In some cases, this is going to be the superintendent that performs these duties, crew foreman, and finally placement machine operator. The material that is available to prepare for these exams, the first one is the ISSA web-based training. Instructions for accessing that are available on ISSA's website. The information is hosted by NCPP, so we're able to see who's registered, how long they've spent in the class, things of that nature. And there's also an NCPP treatment certification session guide. That's a written document on our website in PDF format that's a supplement to the information that's in the web-based training. So each of these courses have their own training material on the ISSA website. If you're doing microsurfacing, there's a separate training module on spreader boxes in addition to taking the microsurfacing training. This is all self-paced. It takes about generally 2 hours to do a training module. At the end of each chapter, there's hurdle tests to make sure that people are engaged in training. And so one of the ways that we found that people have been successful in preparing for these exams is to sit down as a group instead of relying on people to do this individually. Sit down as a group, get in a classroom, review the slides. It's narrated, so you can sit there and play through the slides, get to the end of the chapter, go through these test questions together. Some agencies have bought clickers so that people can give an answer and everybody's answer pops up on the screen. So you really know who is understanding the material and who's not, and you can have some further discussion internally as you're going through this material and try to address issues that people have or understand where there may be gaps in what people are understanding. So an overview of the exam itself. These are made up of 50 to 80 questions. The agency exam is 50 questions, while the contractor exam is 80 questions. The exams are written in true-false multiple choice format. An examinee needs to receive a score of 70% or better in order to pass. This is a closed book, closed note exam. The individuals taking this are expected to possess this knowledge internally. It's not meant for them to refer to notes, things like that. There's no time limit for people to complete the exam. It generally takes about an hour per test. Consultants who are working as inspectors for the agency are going to take the agency version of the exam. For agencies that place the treatment themselves, we recommend that they take the contractor version of the exam. And we've had a handful of states that do the work with their own forces and have taken that contractor version. These are the 6 topic areas that are common to all of the exams. The exams are written a little more, they're written towards the information that the individual needs to know. So it's not the same question on each of the exam. They're going to focus more on aspects they need to be successful. But these are the 6 topic areas we have in the exam: project selection, materials, design, equipment, construction, and then finally quality assurance. Our overall pass rate to date, agency is in the low 60s and the contractors are in the low 70s. We have noticed that the results have started to improve over time as we've tried to encourage these groups to follow proper preparation practices, taking the training as a group, or having someone come in and do brief refresher training right before they take the exam. Examinees who pass are entered into a searchable database on the TSP2 website. You can search for the individual by their name, you can search by who they work for. Currently, we've given over 500 exams. We're at about 360 certifications right now. We have a good number of people certified. Those individuals who pass are going to receive a durable, non-transferable card like the one shown on your screen. And the certification is valid for 3 years, after which time they have to retake the exam. How do we offer the exam? We've always offered in conjunction with these TSP2 partnership meetings. Large group exams can be scheduled at your facility. Another option is for individuals or small groups who are interested in scheduling an exam. We work with the Consortium of College Testing Centers, which are located at universities, community colleges across the country. So most states are going to have several of these centers. They offer exams for a nominal fee, maybe $20 per person. You contact the center, schedule an appointment, and go in at your preferred time and take that exam. And finally, we also offer these exams in conjunction with the ISSA workshop at late January. They spend Monday through Thursday doing the training, and we offer the exam on Friday morning. Here's just a brief look at what this consortium of college testing centers site looks like. You'll find a map on the page, and you can click on any of those states, and it'll bring up the list of centers that are available. And here we have a graphic of the location of individuals who have taken the certification exam to date. As you can see, we have quite a few states in the western region that have participated. We continue to have interest from some of these other states in trying out the certification program. Last thing I want to talk about today is something that's very current, and that is contractor company certification. So this is a separate piece to the certification program from the individual certification. Last month, we issued the first company certification to Seal Coating Inc. of Massachusetts. They became certified in slurry system treatments. And I want to commend them because it's never easy to be the first group to go through something. So they put a lot of effort into getting this certification. I've got an image here of people. This is from last week. When companies receive certification, they're issued a plaque to recognize their achievement in going through this process. So we've got a photo here of one of their foremen, their superintendent. The third person from the left is a co-owner of the company holding the plaque, and then we have their quality control manager on the right. So what is in company certification? The first is that the contractor has to develop and submit a detailed quality control plan. And I'm going to discuss in just a minute what's involved with that quality control plan. Second is they have to have a list of key employees that possess individual certification. So from a few slides ago when I talked about those on the contractor side that had to be certified, being the superintendent, the foreman, the placement operators, they have had those people obtain individual certification, and they've documented in their quality control plan who those individuals are. And the third thing is they have to document that field employees who are engaged in constructing the treatment participate in 4 hours of classroom training and 4 hours of on-the-job training each year. So the quality control plan defines the expected results and how the contractor is going to go about achieving those. So to do that, an acceptable quality control plan is going to do the following things. This is an outline for any surface treatment. Scope and reference documents. So this is going to include various applicable standards, guidelines, specifications, special provisions from organizations like AASHTO, ASTM, ISSA, and the various states that the contractor works for. It needs to define definitions of the various terminology related to the treatment, quality control personnel, the key certified employees within the organization, and that subcontractors or suppliers who are involved in the project. From there, it needs to discuss quality control testing, who's responsible for testing the material, who's responsible for testing the emulsion, who's going to be responsible for testing the aggregate, are they AASHTO resource accredited, who's developing the mix design, how are material substitutions being handled, should go into material control, what type of material is going to be allowed, what are the properties of that material, what are the sources of that material. If we're talking about microsurfacing, for example, we're not just talking about the emulsion and the aggregate, we're talking about the water, the mineral filler, and so on. Quality control sampling and testing. They need to identify what is a lot size for the material, how frequently is the material going to be tested, where is the sample going to be taken, how will the samples be identified. They need to identify the production equipment, what equipment are they going to predominantly use on the job. If we're talking about microsurfacing, for example, is it a continuous paver? Is it a truck-mounted paver? what additional equipment or support equipment is being used on the project, things like that. Another component is they need to talk about treatment placement and workmanship. This is really covering everything that's going to be done in construction, starting with the calibration process. How is the calibration going to be done? How often is it going to be done? The plan moves into discussing the inspection, both the equipment and the existing pavement surface. Is this pavement suitable for construction? Are there steps that need to be taken before this happens? What checks need to be done on the distributor or the placement machine? Has the road been swept? Have the cracks been sealed? The plan should cover the placement of the treatment itself. When it talks about workmanship issues, this is really a discussion of the best practices that are going to be used for items such as the joints or handwork, things of that nature, that they need to use to produce a quality project. Documentation, they need to identify what records are going to be kept and where they're going to be kept. Finally, one of the more important components, what happens if something goes wrong on the job? A lot of effort in the previous parts of the plan detail when things go right, but what happens if something goes wrong? What kind of potential problems might arise and how are they going to be handled if they do? If there's drag marks, if there's uneven joints, how are they going to resolve that? So as you can see, the quality control plan is a very thorough, detailed document that the contractor is going to have to spend a lot of effort into creating. It's not something that they're going to put together overnight. So a good quality control plan may be in the range of 15 to 20 pages with proper supporting documentation. But the benefit of having the document and having the people certified is that they're going to raise the bar on the quality of the projects that are going on out there. So Seal Coating Inc. was the first to complete this process. We've had discussions with a number of other contractors that are interested in starting the company certification process, so we'll probably be seeing more of those. Finally, I want to talk briefly about decertification. And there is a mechanism in place that if we receive supporting documentation from a certified agency, there's a way to decertify a company. And the two ways that that can happen is failure to produce or follow a company's quality control plan, or fraudulent action or deliberate misrepresentation. The intention here isn't to remove a contractor for having a bad job, but if there's something serious that's gone on in terms of not following the plan or committing fraud, that there's a way to remove them as a certified company. But again, I'll mention that the intention here is that the agency is a certified agency, so they also have people on the job that are familiar with this process, understand the process. You've got two groups working together to achieve a quality project. Are there any questions?
My name is Mike Feast with Nevada DOT, and Nevada's been a huge supporter of this program. I know I have some questions about some stats. I don't know how well you guys track the stats. Some of the things we're interested in is we know that when we test inspectors versus engineers versus field maintenance guys versus contractors, the way they test and the way they learn might be different. Do we have stats on the pass rates for each of those four groups, or some group like that? The other thing we're kind of interested in is how common is it to take the test without training? And then do we have stats on the type of improvement? Do we have objective stats on physical improvement in quality of product with trained staff versus untrained?
To answer your first question, we don't have any information or breakdown on inspectors versus engineers versus contractor employees, but we do have the records maintained of who took the test and what type of employee they are, so that is something we can put together and get more information about. Question you brought up about, do we have any sort of data to support before versus after in the improvement in quality? That question's been raised a couple of times, and I think that at some point that's something that needs to be looked at. I think it's a little early on to be able to tell the results at this point, but I think over the long term that is something that should be looked at, is is what's the effect. I think anecdotally there's been some results that we've gotten from people in the field. I'll give one example. Indiana did certification for their employees as contractors. Shortly after they completed the certification, they were out in the field doing a project. They were able to recognize that they had a problem going on early on, and the individual at the DOT said, in the past, our practice probably would have been just to complete the project and have a failure, but we recognized something was going on. We knew enough to stop and figure out why we were having a problem and make the correction. In this instance, they saved themselves from having a failed project. So I think there's already results that there's benefits of the training out there, but over the long term, we'll look to continue to quantify those.
Regarding that quality control plan, is there training around how the contractors should put something like that together? Because that's a new thing, and everybody's going to approach that probably a little differently. Does the training speak to that, or is that to be continued?
We don't have any training put together for that currently, but this is all, as I said, it's a very new process. These were the first ones. We have a template document they can use to try to put a quality control plan together, and it's something that, you know, we're willing to be involved with them. I think there's others within industry. I know there's people at the ISSA that are probably willing to work with them as well to help develop that material or be a sort of a peer review for them when they get a draft of that document put together. So there are resources available, and maybe at some point in time, if there's interest, then there's the possibility that training could be put together. But for now, there's a template to assist with that.
So Mike Peace again, Nevada DOT. How common is it to take the test without training, or do you have a handle for that?
I don't have a firm handle on how many have come without taking any training or preparation at all. We strongly encourage that everybody that takes the exam do the ISSA web-based training, they review the session guides. I'm sure there's a number of people out there that have years of field experience and are able to just walk in and take that test, but certainly for people that don't have years of experience to draw on, I think it's important that they try to review those materials. They are available for free. We also encourage them to do other training, some of the things I talked about earlier, like the ISSA workshop, or working with one of their regional industry groups like RAP or somebody else to address specific training needs they may have. But I don't have information on how many have gone in blind versus prepared for the exam.
Great. Thank you very much. The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.